Good evening, everyone.
晚上好，
Thank you for joining the I-580 truck access study, also
谢谢你能
known
够来
as
参与我们今天
TAS.
的 I-580卡车通信研究。
I'm Ivy Morrison. I will serve as the moderator this evening. And we're just giving it a few minutes. Wow, I'm seeing the numbers really climb. This is wonderful to see the level of public participation in this meeting. Just going to give it another minute or two to let everybody join. And the numbers are still climbing.
再等等，还有没有听众？我们再等一下啊。
For those just joining, good evening. Thank you very much for joining. I'm Ivy Morrison, the moderator for the I-580 Truck Access Study public meeting, otherwise known as TAS. And we're very happy that you're here. We're just giving it another few minutes to let folks join. Thank you again for participating. I'm going to give it another 2 minutes and people can keep joining. We appreciate everybody being on time. So let's jump in. I'm just going to, for those who just joined, good evening. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Ivy Morrison. I'm the moderator for the I-580 Truck Access Study Community Meeting #1. We're very happy that you all joined, and we're going to go into some brief logistical information, interpretation information on our next slide. So interpretation instructions, I'm going to read them in English, and then they're going to be read in Spanish and then in Chinese. So for participants needing interpretation services, please navigate to the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen and follow these steps. In your webinar controls, click the interpretation button, click the language you would like to hear, and to turn on closed captioning, please select Show Captions. So Spanish interpretation, please.
Instrucciones para interpretación. Para los participantes que necesiten servicios de interpretación, navegue hasta el botón de interpretación situado en la parte inferior de su pantalla y siga estos pasos. En los controles de su seminario web, haga clic en el botón de interpretación. Pulse el idioma que desee escuchar.
Thank you very much. Chinese, please.
口译说明：如果需要口译服务的参与者，请点击屏幕底部的口译按钮，并按以下步骤来进行操作。在网络研讨会控制面板中，点击翻译按钮，选择您希望收听的语言，并且开启字幕功能，请选择显示字幕。
Just going to give it a minute for anybody needing language interpretation to be placed into those interpretation channels. This meeting is being recorded. It will be posted to the project website. We'll provide more information about that in a few more minutes. Just giving our team just a little bit of time to place everybody who needs interpretation in those channels. I think we can move on to the next slide. So this is a non-discrimination policy statement that I'm going to read in English, and it will be read also in Spanish and Chinese in the language interpretation channels. So the California Department of Transportation, under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, ensures that no person in the United States shall, on the ground of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. And I'll just give our interpreters a minute to interpret in their channels, and then we'll move on to the rest of the statement. Next slide, please. Caltrans will make every effort to ensure non-discrimination in all of its services, programs, and activities, whether they are federally funded or not, and that services and benefits are fairly distributed to all people, regardless of race, color, or national origin. In addition, Caltrans will facilitate meaningful participation in the transportation planning process in a non-discriminatory manner. Another minute for interpretation. And we can move on. Related federal statutes, remedies, and state law further those protections to include sex, disability, religion, sex orientation, and age. For information or guidance on how to file a complaint or obtain more information regarding Title VI, please contact the Title VI branch manager at 916-324-8379 or visit the following webpage. Allowing another minute for interpretation. And we can move on. So a few brief instructions about a Zoom webinar. As I mentioned, this meeting is being recorded. It will be posted to a project website. We'll provide the URL later in the presentation. Please use the Q&A function to ask questions. You can drop them into the Q&A at any time during the meeting, but we will have a facilitated Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please be respectful and refrain from the use of profanity. Inappropriate comments and questions will be removed and will not be discussed. And as I just mentioned, a recording will be posted on the Caltrans project website. And now I'd like to introduce Cameron Oakes, Deputy District Director of Planning for Caltrans District 4.
All right, good evening, everyone. Once again, I'm Cameron Oakes, Deputy District Director for the Division of Transportation Planning and Local Assistance at Caltrans District 4, covering the Bay Area. I want to thank you all for being here tonight and welcome you to our very first community meeting for the Interstate 580 Truck Access Study. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to join us. I'd also like to extend our appreciation to the elected officials from within the study area for their continued engagement and support for this important effort. This study is an important step for Caltrans. It reflects a broader shift in how we approach transportation planning by looking not just at roads and traffic, but at the real impacts on the communities around them. We're re-examining longstanding issues with fresh eyes and a deeper commitment to listening, and your voices are essential in shaping this work. Tonight is just the beginning, and we're here to share what we've learned so far, and more importantly, to hear from you. Your input will help share the direction of this study moving forward. We hope you leave tonight with a better sense of what this study is about and how you can stay involved as we move ahead. So thanks again for being here, and we look forward to the conversation.
Hello, I'm Kelsey Rodriguez, the contract manager for the Interstate 580 Truck Access Study. I'm a senior transportation planner with Caltrans District 4. Tonight, we will be explaining the purpose of tonight's meeting, providing an overview of the study, presenting on existing conditions for the study area, explaining how your input will be used throughout the duration of the study, then moving into the question and answer portion of the meeting, and closing with next steps. The project team is comprised of the 4 main groups shown on the screen. Representing the Caltrans team tonight is myself, Cameron Oakes, Deputy of Transportation Planning and Local Assistance, and John Chu, Office Chief of Multimodal System Planning. Baron Piers is the study's primary consultant, and Circle Point is leading the public engagement throughout the study's duration. And lastly, the Technical Advisory Committee, which I will discuss more on the next slide. The Bay Area Air District, who is also a TAC member, is responsible for the air quality analysis of the study. They are joining us tonight to help answer questions regarding the air quality analysis. The Technical Advisory Committee is comprised of a broad group of county, regional, and state agencies, cities within the study area, community-based organizations, and industry groups who are providing technical direction for the study with their expertise in various topics and themes the study will address. Next, we will be discussing the meeting purpose. The main purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide information about the Interstate 580 Truck Access Study, which includes discussing goals for the study and how the truck ban will be evaluated. Second, we want to understand what is important to you about this study and what you want the project team to consider. To get a sense of who's in the room tonight, we'll be launching a poll to see where everyone is tuning in from. We also want to hear how you heard about this meeting. This will be a 2-poll question. The first question is a single choice question. Where do you live? The options are Berkeley, Emeryville, Oakland, Piedmont, San Leandro, unincorporated Alameda County, or other. The second question is multi-choice, and it's how did you hear about tonight's meeting? The options are flyer, social media, website, Caltrans engagement portal, community organization, newsletter, an event within the project area, or other. We'll give it a minute so you can all select your answers on the poll. And we just got the poll results. It looks like the majority of you are tuning in from Oakland tonight. Second place is San Leandro, and third place is unincorporated Alameda County. For how did you hear about this meeting? It looks like the main winners are social media, community organization, and the newsletter. So thanks for participating in the first poll, and we'll continue with the presentation. All right, and now we'll be going over the study overview. So what is the I-580 truck ban? The truck ban does not allow vehicles over 4.5 tons or 9,000 pounds on I-580 between Grand Avenue in Oakland and the Oakland-San Leandro city limit, with the exception of passenger buses and paratransit vehicles. To fully understand the ban that exists today, we must understand its historical context. It's important to acknowledge policy decisions at the federal, state, and local levels that have contributed to outcomes in the study area based on race. Some of these policies shaped racial inequities within the study area, including the practice of redlining, which the federal government restricted mortgages in communities of color, particularly Black communities, thereby locking these communities out of the housing market. Second, racial covenants, which prevented people of color from owning or occupying property. And lastly, the construction of transportation systems, including the state highway system by Caltrans and the construction of BART, that demolished homes in communities of color and continue to pose a physical barrier to mobility and access for these communities. As we see from the redlining map of the inner East Bay shown on the screen, redline neighborhoods in the study area are primarily adjacent to where I-580 is today. These policies and many others, including the weight restriction on I-580 that was instituted by the City of Oakland, upheld by Caltrans, and later codified in the California Vehicle Code, contributed to a system whereby people of color were and continue to be disproportionately exposed to environmental hazards and pollution, and confined to neighborhoods that face disproportionately high infrastructure challenges and barriers. It's important to connect back to this historical context as we consider the data that will be presented in subsequent slides. A question the Caltrans team has been getting frequently is why study the truck ban now? In terms of origin of the study, the Bay Area Air District adopted the West Oakland Community Action Plan, or WOCAP, in 2019. WOCAP identified numerous strategies, including one to re-examine the long-standing truck ban on I-580 and how the potential removal could impact air quality and traffic on I-880 and other state highways and arterials. A similar strategy was also included in the 2021 East Oakland Mobility Action Plan that the City of Oakland conducted, once again calling on Caltrans to study the impacts of removing the ban. Student-led initiatives in East Oakland also started asking Caltrans about the history of the ban and calling on the agency to reevaluate the historic transportation decision. Caltrans heard the community's request and worked with the City of Oakland and the Bay Area Air District to scope the Interstate 580 truck access study. With their support and inclusion of other analyses, we will ensure the study looks beyond mere traffic analysis and forecasting to provide a comprehensive picture of what the potential removal could look like. Now I'll be handing it off to Farron Pierce to discuss the study goals.
Great. Thanks so much, Kelsey. Hi, everyone. My name is Molly Sun, and I'm a planner at Farron Pierce. For those of you who might have missed the introduction, we're the transportation planning and engineering firm that is supporting Caltrans with this study. And so the study really has three goals, and we really want to emphasize that what we're doing here is a study to understand the impacts, and it will result in a recommendation, but it will not result in a change to the existing ban. That will require an act of the state legislature and someone to sponsor that through the legislative process to change. And so our study goals are threefold. The first is understanding how removing the truck ban could affect travel conditions and safety along I-880, I-580, and local roads, as well as exposure to air and noise pollution in nearby communities. Our second goal is to build community and stakeholder consensus on the study process and key findings. And the third is to identify study recommendations and next steps. And again, just to reiterate, if there is a recommended change to the truck ban, this would require an act of legislation to be removed. Next slide, please. And so next, I'm going to walk through some of the existing traffic, environmental, and demographic conditions in the study area to help us understand what is happening today and who is being impacted by existing truck traffic and poor air quality. Next slide, please. This first map that we're looking at shows truck volumes on study area freeways for both smaller trucks as well as the heavy trucks that are banned on I-580 today. This data can help us understand which parts of the freeway network carry the most truck traffic and where exposure to pollution from trucks might be higher. Not surprisingly, the highest truck volumes are along I-880 and I-238. Both of these freeways carry more than 5,000 trucks in each direction every day. And on I-880, truck activity is especially heavy south of the port. This data set does include some smaller trucks as well, which is why we see some truck traffic on I-580. However, those volumes are much lower, less than half of what we see on 880. Next slide, please. This slide shows diesel particulate matter, also referred to as diesel PM, which mainly comes from vehicles with diesel engines, such as trucks and buses. Across the study area, diesel particulate matters are generally high, but they're especially elevated in neighborhoods west of I-580 and SR13. The highest concentrations occur along major truck routes, including I-880, I-238, and portions of I-580 outside of the truck ban area. These areas are also home to equity priority communities, which we'll talk a little bit more about on the next slide. Next slide, please. This map shows the areas that the Metropolitan Transportation Commission identifies as equity priority communities, neighborhoods where residents may face greater barriers, for example, due to having lower incomes or limited English proficiency, and as a result, are more likely to experience transportation and environmental burdens. In our study area, back one slide, please. In the study area, most equity priority communities are to the west of I-580 or near 238. These communities are near freeways that carry many trucks and are close to industrial areas where exposure to truck traffic, noise, and air pollution tends to be higher. Next, we'll look at some of the detailed income as well as race and ethnicity data to get a better understanding of some of the demographics that make up the study area community. Next slide, please. This map shows the share of people earning less than twice the federal poverty level, which for a family of 4 is under $60,000 per year. The greatest concentrations of lower income neighborhoods are west of I-580, especially near the Coliseum industrial area, in West Oakland, as well as in Ashland. Next slide, please. These maps show where people of color live within the study area, and it's a nuanced picture. In general, communities of color are most concentrated west of I-580, although there are some differences by race and ethnicity. For example, Black residents predominantly live in West Oakland, but also in East Oakland and on both sides of I-580. Latino residents predominantly live west of I-580 and south of Park Boulevard in Oakland. Then Asian residents live throughout the study area, but there are fewer Asian residents in East Oakland, especially as compared to Black and Latino residents. And so next, I'm going to talk about how we are going to evaluate the truck ban and incorporate your feedback into the evaluation process. Next slide. And so we will be evaluating the truck ban by looking at how it affects the people, neighborhoods, and transportation system as a whole through 6 different measures. The first is exposure to air and noise pollution for people living in the study area. So, those are the communities that we saw on the map just now. Second, the amount of truck traffic on local streets. Third, safety for people walking and biking on local streets. 4, potential impacts to roadway conditions. 5, travel conditions and safety on study area freeways. And then 6, how goods move through the study area. Next slide, please. Great. And so this slide shows the process that the study will use to evaluate whether the I-580 truck ban should be maintained or removed. And again, this would be a recommendation emerging from the study. And so we are using air traffic, and noise models to estimate how maintaining the truck ban or removing the truck ban would affect traffic, air quality, noise, and racial equity. We will share the findings from this work for public feedback in the spring of 2026, and then we'll use that feedback to develop preliminary recommendations and return to you all later in the year to get your feedback before finalizing and documenting recommendations in a report. Throughout the process, the technical and advisory committee, comprised of subject matter experts, will help guide the work by providing input on both the technical analysis as well as the public engagement approach. And then finally, as a reminder, to modify the truck ban, the study recommendations would need to be championed by a decision maker who could advance a law through the California legislature. And so next, I will transition over to Ivy, who will provide an overview of the project engagement and ask you some questions about how you would like to participate in the study going forward.
Yes, thank you, Molly. So what can you expect to see in future outreach phases? So we're planning to do some ground truthing. So to ask you about your lived experience within the project area. And we're going to do that through a series of community workshops. We're going to provide presentations and pop-ins at community meetings, conduct community surveys online and potentially in person. And we're going to, as we're doing tonight, provide language interpretation, translation of materials in Spanish and Chinese to make sure that they're accessible to community members. And we also envision opportunities to review data with you in small groups alongside Caltrans at local libraries. But that's just some preliminary ideas, nothing fully baked yet. And in fact, we would like very much to hear your input through the third and final anonymous poll, which is how would you like to participate in the public process going forward? Select all that apply. Wow. Wait for people to provide input. Getting closer. Okay, thank you. It looks like the majority of you would like to provide input via surveys. Another community workshops and sharing comments online is are both sort of neck and neck. And then data review in small groups with Caltrans at local libraries there's interest, but perhaps not as strong as some of the other options. So thank you very much. Next slide, please.
Sorry, Abby, I think we missed the poll, so maybe we should go back.
The poll? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, the second part. So which of these topics are most important to you? Exposure to air and noise pollution from trucks, particularly truck traffic on local streets, exposure to conflicts with trucks for people walking and biking, roadway degradation and maintenance costs, travel conditions and safety on study area freeways, and efficiency of goods movement through the study area. Looks like we're getting close. Okay, it looks like exposure to air and noise pollution. Oh, sorry, some results are still coming in, but to move forward, because we really do want to get into the facilitated Q&A, it looks like based on these findings, exposure to air and noise pollution from trucks is the highest priority. Travel conditions and safety on study area freeways ranks very highly. Roadway degradation and maintenance costs, truck traffic, and efficiency of goods movement. And we are, by the way, recording all of these results. And as I mentioned, we're also recording the meeting. And we also have people on the back end of this meeting taking detailed written notes as well. So we really are making sure to capture both your questions as well as your input on these polls. Next slide, please. So facilitated Q&A, just a reminder about the process for a productive Q&A session. Please type your question or comment into the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen at any time. Please keep your questions concise. There are 361 of you, and we have, oh my goodness, almost 100 questions and comments in the Q&A right now. We are going to try to get to as many questions and comments as we can in the time that we have with you, and to address the other ones that we can't get to in an updated FAQ on the project website. And if you are dialing in, we are going to prioritize the questions and comments in the Q&A via Zoom. And after we've addressed those, then we're going to go to folks on the phone. Please press *9 to raise your virtual hand, and we'll unmute you to ask your question. And you can see both a link and a QR code to the project webpage. All right, so as I mentioned, we are scurrying behind the scenes to really keep up with all of the questions and comments that we've been getting in. We're going to go to the first one, which is who is representing the schools and residents of the I-580 and Highway 13 corridors? Will there be an environmental impact study? And so Kelsey, I think you can address this one, please.
Yeah, so right now we've mainly been meeting with our technical advisory committee because the study has just sort of kicked off. So this is our first phase of engagement, and we'll be moving to the second phase of engagement in the winter of 2026, which will be much more in person and meeting people where they are. So as the project team, we're expecting to engage more residents and particularly schools within the I-580 corridor and Highway 13 during this phase. And I think the second question was, will there be an environmental impact study as a part of this? There will not be in the traditional sense. The Air District is going to perform an air quality analysis for the entire study area. And we will be also conducting a noise impact assessment for the entire study area in addition to our traffic analysis and forecasting. An official environmental review is not in the cards right now where we are with this study, depending on the results from the study. And if anyone wants to take this legislation forward, that might happen, but it's I'm unclear right now when that would happen.
Thank you. Thank you for the person who asked the question, and thank you also to Kelsey. Do you have demographic data for the I-880 corridor? And I'm going to field this one to Molly.
Great. Thanks so much for this question. We do have demographic data for the I-880 corridor, as well as for the full study area. We have data for some of the demographic characteristics that we showed you this evening. So we looked at income as well as race and ethnicity. We've also looked at youth population as well as senior population for the study area.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Who is considering the impact of the 580 truck access on children and elderly and other vulnerable populations who live and attend school along or near 580, similar to the question we answered a little while ago? What is the rationale for simply moving these impacts from 880 corridor to the I-580 corridor rather than attempting to mitigate the effects around I-880? And Molly, that's another one for you. And I'm sorry, I skipped over one. I'll get back to it.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks again for the question. And Steve, just a heads up that, if you feel like chiming in from the Air District's perspective, please feel free to. And so this is a great question, and it's one of the things that we're going to be looking at from this study. We don't know what the results of the analysis will show, but we will be looking to understand sort of what is the distribution of air pollution with the truck ban maintained as well as the truck ban removed. And we'll do a comparison of the results of kind of both of those possible scenarios to understand sort of who is impacted under each. And from there, as I sort of mentioned a little bit earlier, we're going to bring those findings to you all, review them with the public, and decide sort of how we move forward based on what the analysis shows.
Thank you. This one is back to Kelsey. Please indicate the elected officials that participated in this study. And I think it's sort of an ongoing process. So there have already been some elected officials who have participated and will continue to participate.
Yeah, so we have engaged with Supervisor Nate Miley, Assembly Member Mia Bonta, and we have presented at the city councils of Piedmont, San Leandro, and Oakland. We've also attended several transportation commissions or transportation and sustainability commissions within the study area, briefing them on the study and talking about this phase 1 of engagement and kind of spreading the word about this Zoom meeting happening tonight. So we look forward to engaging with more elected officials within the study area as we continue with the study and more results start to come out and we start to engage with the public in person regarding this study.
Thank you. Another one for you, Kelsey, since you have the floor. We have received a few questions about noise. Most of the I-580 corridor has no sound wall, but I-880 has extensive sound walls. Will I-580 have extensive sound walls built to protect the schools, hospitals, and residences if there are trucks allowed?
Maybe I can pass this one to Cameron or John. I don't want to speak out of turn on this important topic.
Yeah, I can take this one. John Shu, I'm the Office Chief for Multimodal System Planning at Caltrans District 4 Bay Area. So as part of the study scope, we are including a noise impact analysis to the residents within the study area. And in addition, if the study recommends the removal of the truck ban, we will also be looking into what additional, more complementary strategies we need to include, such as addressing the noise impacts to nearby communities along 580.
Thank you. Next question for you, Molly. Will the Caltrans study consider the potential social impact collateral issues that will come with allowing big rigs on 580, such as garbage trucks, parking on ancillary streets, prostitution, and street safety?
Yes, we will be looking at many of these topics. So in particular, we will be looking at truck parking and access to truck parking from both freeways. We will also be looking at maintenance costs and how those might change with opening up I-580 to trucks. And then the other topic we are looking at is we are looking at truck volumes and how those might change on local roadways and the impacts to street safety that might have.
Thank you for that. That does sort of address the next question in the queue here. Will the study consider the potential for more than natural truck traffic growth along 880 and 580 in the event of lifting the truck ban, like when expanding a highway with a new lane actually increases traffic volumes and congestion in the long run?
Ivy, I assume that's for me.
Yeah, you sort of touched on it with the last question, so if you could, that would be great.
Yes, so this is another topic that we will be looking at through the traffic modeling. We will be looking at total truck volumes within the study area, both with the truck ban and without the truck ban. And that will help us understand if whether increasing access for trucks might increase the total number of trucks that are traveling through the study area.
Great, thank you. Let's see, and then some comments here. Please add representatives from each affected community to the project team. Noted, every jurisdiction has a representative on the TAC. Thank you very much for that comment. And has Caltrans reached out to Oakland Unified School District hospitals and skilled nursing facilities for the likely health impacts and economic cost with your proposed changes? And just to clarify, they're not really proposed changes. It's what we're studying right now. So just want to make sure that everybody is really clear about that. They're not proposed changes. They're being studied. This is an analysis.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Ivy. I will say we have been working with the Alameda Health Consortium. Sorry, I can't pronounce that word. We've been working to identify health clinics within the study area, letting them know that we are conducting the study and looking forward to engaging with them in this next phase. Once we have some data to represent or to present, we're also looking at engaging with the school districts within the study area and various youth commissions within the cities of the study area as well.
Thank you. Another one from Molly. What are the components of the racial equity assessment that will be studied?
So the racial equity assessment will draw on Oakland's racial equity framework, and essentially what it will do is it will disaggregate the results of the traffic analysis, the air analysis, as well as the noise analysis by race and ethnicity to understand if one racial group is more impacted under one scenario than another.
Thank you. This is a question for John. Will the truck study evaluate the structural design and load levels on 580?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So the short answer is yes. We will be looking at if the existing infrastructure would be able to fully accommodate the potential truck traffic if we open up the 580 corridor. Yes.
Thank you. And back to Molly. Can you share more about the process for evaluating safety and measuring pollution? Are simulations being used or other methods for measuring the impacts?
Yes, and thanks for this question. I'll start off with the safety piece and then maybe send it over to Steve to talk about the pollution piece. We are using what's called a travel demand model to measure the potential traffic impacts of lifting the ban. We're going to combine the findings from that analysis with some data that we have about existing collisions, both on the freeway as well as on local streets, to estimate, how exposure and how risk of these collisions might change if the truck ban were to be modified.
Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe I can speak to the air pollution side, Ivy. So,
Sure.
yeah, so Molly mentioned earlier the traffic analysis that will be done for, with and without ban conditions. And so the air district will be converting those traffic volumes and fleet information into emissions estimates. And then we'll run those emissions estimates through a dispersion model to figure out what the pollutant concentrations are along the corridors and arterials that are going to be affected by the potential lifting of the truck ban. So it'll be a modeled evaluation of air quality changes.
Thank you. This is still on a similar topic, Steve. How does the study plan to integrate the air pollution benefits and impacts under different scenarios of light, medium, and heavy duty vehicle electrification in 2, 5, and even 10 years? For instance, how are the impacts of nearly $400 million worth of grants from the federal EPA and the California Transportation Commission toward port electrification accounted for in air pollution forecasts?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we're looking at specific years. So we're looking at 2020, no pandemic baseline condition for the existing conditions with the ban. And then we're going to be looking at forecasted changes out in 2035 with the ban held in place. And then also what would happen in that year if the ban were removed. So as part of that lookout to 2035, we'll be taking into account fleet changes over that time, as well as the traffic volume changes on the different roadways. So that will include estimates of the penetration of electric vehicles into the fleet over that time frame. But it will just be those specific years. It won't be necessarily at 2, 5, and regular intervals.
Thank you. This is one for you, John. Will this study include the fact that a parallel study is underway to remove I-980? Seems to be crucial. So I think this question is about Vision 980.
Correct. Yes, we are conducting 2 more equity-focused studies right now, the 580 truck access study and the Vision 980 study. So to be clear, the Vision 980 study will not remove the 980 freeway. We're only studying what will happen if we remove 980 and how that would better connect communities along both sides of the corridor. But to answer that question, so the traffic model that both Molly and Steve talked about, that will tell us what kind of truck traffic there will be if the I-5 truck ban was to be removed. And that output will become the input for the Vision 980 study. So the additional truck traffic from this study will be incorporated into the Vision 980 study.
Thank you. And then let's see, one for you, Molly. Actually, sorry, let me stay with John for another minute. Will the number of trucks be counted and an agreement made to limit the number of trucks to the present load if the I-580 is open to trucks to ensure that we do not have more trucks than present?
I didn't quite follow that question.
Yeah.
I think it's speaking to the history of the truck ban a little bit. And we have a website set up to explain the history behind the truck ban. But one thing I do want to emphasize, which Kelsey covered during her portion of the presentation, which is that the truck ban has been codified in the California Vehicle Code, and Caltrans does not have the authority to remove the truck ban through this study. You will take legislative action to be able to remove the truck ban. So this is really an analysis to see what would happen if the truck ban were to be removed.
Hey, John, if I can just jump in real fast as Hugh Louch with Fair and Peers, I think what they're asking is there a way to sort of like set a total number of trucks that are allowed on area freeways? And maybe just to clarify that there's not necessarily a legal way that could be done.
Right. Yeah, I don't think there's a legal way to set that limit, at least not within Caltrans jurisdiction.
Thank you both. Molly, back to you. In addition to the air quality and traffic issues, will the study consider the safety on 580 and 13 with allowing trucks on these portions of the freeway, along with increased amount of trash? Similarly, trucks tend to damage the roads, and we already have issues with uneven paved roads and potholes that are never repaired.
Great. Thanks for the question. Yes, we will be looking at these topics. And again, sort of starting with an understanding of how truck volumes on both freeways as well as local roadways might change if the ban is to be removed. That can help us understand what the impact might be to the existing road surface and what that might mean in terms of maintenance cost as well. So we will be looking at these topics.
Thank you. And then another question for you, Molly. Will this study include any potential mitigation measures that could be used for both 880 and 580?
Yes, we will be looking at recommendations, and that includes both a recommendation on the truck ban itself, but other mitigation measures that could sort of mitigate the impact of truck traffic in local communities and within the study area as a whole. So there will be consideration of this within the study.
Great. Thank you. And another one for you, Molly, doing a lot of talking. Will the study assume any proposed improvements that may be under consideration on I-580 by the Alameda CTC MTC? So that's Alameda County Transportation Commission, Metropolitan Transportation Commission agencies, such as the conversion of mixed-use freeway lanes to express lanes?
Thanks for this question. It's a good one, and it's something that we're currently evaluating. We are running a few different scenarios to understand how including those policies in our work might impact the analysis. And so we may choose to include them, we may choose to exclude them, but we will be looking at both, a scenario where the truck ban is maintained and a scenario where the truck ban is removed, and keeping those types of assumptions constant across both of those scenarios.
What is the definition, Molly, of impacted communities?
Yes, another good question. Thank you. I think this really depends. I think we're going to potentially have a different set of impacted communities under the scenario where the truck ban is maintained as compared to the scenario where the truck ban is removed. So we'll have a better understanding of where those communities are once we see the results from the full suite of analysis for this study.
Thank you. One for John. What is the timeline of lifting the truck ban if it's approved?
Good question. We don't really have information on the timeline. As I stated before, the removal of the truck ban will require legislative action. But as part of this study, we will be looking at what the process would be to lift the truck ban. And for example, how would the environmental review process be folded into that overall process?
Thank you. And then for John and Cameron, has a hazardous materials risk assessment been completed for allowing more trucks on I-580? Specifically, how would a spill or an accident be contained in a corridor surrounded by dense residential neighborhoods?
Cameron, you want to take this one?
That's a good question. Normally, our division of maintenance is very responsive in terms of when we have a truck accident or some sort of collision involving a spill, whether that's whatever type of hazardous material could be released into the environment. So we'll definitely take that question into consideration on how we could best incorporate that into whether or not trucks would be allowed on Interstate 580.
Thank you. Will Caltrans's study, Kelsey and or John, will Caltrans's study also note how much public dumping is happening, kind of related question, on all 580 and 880 freeway entrances?
John, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take this one. So the truck access study itself, this study, we are not including illegal dumping in our scope, but there has been some very active discussion about this topic with our division of maintenance. And I should also point out that some of these issues actually occur on local streets, which are not within Caltrans jurisdiction. So we are actually also coordinating with the city of Oakland on some of those local illegal dumping issues.
Thank you. We've gotten several questions asking if the truck ban will increase the total number of trucks using area freeways, not just shift the trucks from one freeway from 880 to 580, but impact other systems. And that's a Molly question.
Great. Thank you for this question. I will say we don't have the answer to this question yet, but it is something that we will be looking to understand, which is really how does the volume of truck traffic within the study area change overall? And what does that mean for the overall air quality within the study area too?
Thank you. John, another question for you. How are the lower bridge clearances on I-580 evaluated in this proposal? And again, not a proposal, this is a study, just to clarify. Have you confirmed that the full range of commercial trucks, including higher profile vehicles, can safely pass under every structure?
Yeah, very good question. As part of the study, we are looking into bridge clearance data for all overpasses along 580. So that's definitely part of the study scope.
Thank you, Stephen. An air quality question for you. Diesel particulate matter has dropped dramatically, significant orders of magnitude since 1995 due to several pieces of national and state pollution legislation. Will your study take, at least in part, a longer data timeline on diesel particulate matter in the area, or just a handful of years of data? Thank you.
Yes, it's definitely true that the California Air Resources Board in particular has passed some pretty aggressive legislation in recent years to reduce diesel particulate matter from trucks and buses, and drayage trucks in particular. And so we will be taking into account those regulations as they're phased in over time and the effect that they have on the fleet and on emission rates from trucks in the study area. I mentioned earlier that we're particularly looking at 2020 as kind of current conditions or baseline conditions, and then we're going to be looking at 2035. So we will account for the impact of any regulations, any DPM reductions that occur by that year of 2035 for sure.
Thank you. Going to slow down the pace just a little bit to help our translators, give them a little bit of time to translate. If trucks are allowed on I-580, how will Caltrans fulfill its obligation to provide special conservation treatment to this officially designated state scenic highway? And that is a Caltrans question, John or Cameron.
Yeah, I can take this one too. Very good question. We are actually looking into the scenic highway designation of the 580 corridor, and see how would removing the truck ban would affect that designation.
Anything to add from anyone else at Caltrans? Okay, I think we've addressed that question. Let's see, will alternatives to lifting the truck ban be explored to address equity issues without further impacting the environment, such as trains, for example? And Molly, that's a question for you.
Great. Thank you. The study will not look at trains as an alternative form of goods movement through the study area. However, there will be other recommendations, and those include recommendations that could mitigate the impact of trucks in local communities and could include recommendations related to enforcing adherence to truck routes or things like that. And so we won't be looking at alternative forms of transportation, but we will be looking at other strategies to mitigate equity issues.
Thank you. Given our existing backlog in roadway maintenance, what funding source is expected to cover the increased pavement damage caused by heavy trucks, presumably on I-580? Is there a plan, or are we simply shifting costs onto Oakland taxpayers? It's Caltrans question.
Cameron, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, the study will be looking at that type of information to see what roadway degradation might occur as a result of the two scenarios. In terms of additional funding needed, that could also be incorporated as a strategy moving forward with these study recommendations.
Thank you. Let's see, is there a breakdown of the percentage of industrial zone property that is adjacent to 880 compared to industrial zone property adjacent to the I-580 corridor, Molly?
Thank you. We have not looked at the zoning designation of properties that are adjacent to each of the corridors. However, we have looked at existing uses and have found that there is a much higher concentration of industrial land uses adjacent to I-880.
Thank you. Okay, this looks like a noise and air question. Won't the large trucks need to reach the port anyway, leading to continued concerns around noise and air pollution to impacted communities? What efforts are there to improve environmental and noise pollution through more sustainable approaches? Electric trucks and limitations on trucks rather than spreading the pollution across more of Oakland.
John, you want me to start with that one? Or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and obviously it's a concern that the port is a major attractor of truck traffic. And the question is, what would happen to those trucks if the ban were lifted? Would some of them start to access the 580? If they did, what route would they take to get there, and who would be impacted by that? So those are definitely questions that we're going to be looking to answer through the study, through both the travel modeling and then also the air quality analyses and the noise analyses. So those kinds of questions will be considered for sure.
And if I can add to that, as Kelsey discussed during her portion of the presentation, this study came out of the West Oakland Community Action Plan. So that plan actually recommends a suite of strategies to address the emission issues in West Oakland. So we, by doing this study, is simply implementing one of the recommended strategies from that plan.
Thank you. So we're getting a number of questions about funding and where is the money coming from to, quote, push this change. Again, the change is not confirmed. This is a study. There's no proposal. But good question. It is coming up a lot. So John, maybe you can address that one.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, as part of the study, we will be looking at what the process, the actual removal process would be if we are recommending the removal of the truck ban. So as part of that discussion, we can potentially look into different funding strategies as part of that overall research.
And I think the other question was, where's the funding for this study coming from? So this is a Caltrans funded study through state planning and research funds. Caltrans had to submit an internal proposal to conduct this study. We were awarded, and now we're implementing this study.
And it's being conducted in response to requests from the community that we've heard before.
Yes.
Sorry. 280 no trucks and 101 trucks on the peninsula. Is this an analogous situation to the 580 situation? And that's a John question.
Cameron, you may help me out on this one, but I don't think there's a truck restriction on 280. So
Right,
I just don't quite see the parallel there. So in the case of 580, there's the specific truck ban in the California Vehicle Code that prohibits truck over 4.5 tons to use this facility, but there's not such a restriction for I-280.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying. Will the study evaluate traffic diversion to local streets when trucks are allowed on, when or if trucks are allowed on I-580? And if freeway level of service degrades? So Hugh, you're going to take that one.
Yeah, I can take that one. Thanks. We'll mix you up here on some voices you're hearing tonight. So a part of the traffic evaluation that we're conducting as part of this study will be to look at where we think trucks will go, both, as we said, sort of in the current moment and also around 2035. So we'll be able to look and see where we think traffic is going and evaluate that and see if there is any expected diversion that might occur.
And a related question, but maybe more for John. If Caltrans recommends lifting the ban after analysis and public input, will the ban also be lifted on Highway 13? And will big trucks be allowed to use local surface streets?
Yeah, another very good question. Technically, there's currently not a truck restriction on State Route 13, but we view 13 as having a de facto truck ban because of the truck ban on 580. So as part of the study, we are including the Highway 13 corridor in the scope to see what kind of traffic impact there will be if the truck ban on 580 is removed.
Thank you. Then I have a question I think someone from our team can answer. When you say phase, what does that mean? And I'm assuming that the question is pertaining to phases of engagement and sort of the stages of the project and, you know, sort of what we're bringing to the public at during the course of the study. Kelsey,
I can take the first stab at it, and then if anyone from Fair and Peers or John wants to fill in, they're more than welcome to. So when we say phase in terms of engagement, this study is scoped out to do essentially 3 phases of engagement or 3 rounds of engagement. So right now what we're doing is essentially phase 1 of engagement, which is informing the public that live along these corridors in the study area that we are conducting this study, and presenting on the existing conditions, which Molly went over tonight. Some of the initial findings that we found, you know, from the project team. And then the second phase of engagement, which will be happening in winter and spring of 2026, is when we're going to be coming back to the public with the technical analysis that we've conducted. So that's the 2020 pre-COVID baseline conditions, and then the future scenario of the 2035 conditions under a ban and no ban scenario. So we'll be presenting these technical findings to the public. We'll be discussing how the modeling works and understand what the future looks like with the ban and without the ban within the study area. And then the final phase of engagement is essentially presenting the draft, the draft study to the public again, telling you all how we used your vital input throughout the time we've engaged you during the study, and then bringing you along for the next steps and not leaving you in the dark where Caltrans will be going after the study is completed. So those are sort of the 3 phases of engagement that align with where we will be within the study. And others on the project team, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I can add to that. So the phases is really a way for us to keep track of or manage the study scope in terms of major milestones. But in reality, engagement will be continuous throughout the entire duration of the study. We have a study website set up. We will be updating the frequently asked questions. We will also be sending out regular updates to our email list.
So please sign up for emails if you're not already. Thank you. Let's see, how does this study, John, a question for you. How does this study tie in with the recently published Caltrans CMPC for the I-580 corridor that recommended on and off ramp closures or upgrades, express lanes, and dedicated bus lanes?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that, but I think Molly, feel free to jump in, or Hugh.
Excuse me, can you spell out what CMPC is?
Yeah, I believe this person means the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan, or CMCP, which was a corridor plan recently completed by the Alameda County Transportation Commission. So during that study, Alameda CTC was aware of Caltrans starting this 580 truck access study. So their CMCP did specifically include the truck ban removal as part of their analysis. For our analysis, I think as Molly discussed, we will be developing these future scenarios with the truck ban maintained and with the truck ban removed. So as part of that future baseline, we are incorporating some of those planned projects within the study area. Not sure if Molly or Hugh wants to add anything to that.
Seeing no, but thank you. Thanks for the question and the answer. Would a partial, John, another one, making you do a lot of talking. Would a partial truck ban during commute hours be feasible?
Yeah, and another very good question. This suggestion actually came up during our recent technical advisory committee meeting. So we are looking into that and see if it would be feasible to implement that.
Thank you. Let's see, a multi-part question here for Hugh or maybe John. Beyond the project evaluating the impacts of truck access on 580, will the study also focus on how Caltrans and all entities can actively work on addressing existing burdens along the I-880 communities and surrounding cities with a lot of truck access routes, for example, San Leandro? And the second part of that question is, will mitigation efforts for the I-880 corridor be developed and prioritized over any new impacts with truck access along the I-580?
Why don't I start, and then John, please jump in as needed. I think there've been a handful of questions kind of like this that are getting at, like, what about addressing the current problem instead of expanding that problem or thinking about it on multiple roads? And just want to be clear that there is a part of the study scope that does in fact include looking at strategies that are meant to help mitigate any issues from trucks. It'll be done at a pretty high level, but it is something that is very much part of the scope and very much something that we totally understand is a very important consideration, which is to try to mitigate. We know that there are a lot of these negative impacts, and wherever there are going to be trucks, the strategies to mitigate that are going to be really important. I don't know that we can speak specifically about what would be prioritized or not prioritized, certainly as part of this study. And so, John, I don't know if you want to add anything about that piece of it, but did want to acknowledge that we're doing that type of work.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that Caltrans is committed to working with our stakeholders, including public agency stakeholders and the communities, to address impacts from our transportation system. So even if we may or may not be able to address that specific issue within the scope of this particular study, we're committed in improving the lives of all Californians.
Thank you. Let's see, we have a pollution question for Stephen. The pollution map shows the highest concentrations near the port with its ships and trucks, and also near the Oakland airport. It's not just trucks on I-580. Are you being careful to isolate the sources?
Yeah, this is an important point, that the total pollution burden that people in the study area are facing is not just from trucks on the freeways and arterials. There's also a lot of other emission sources in Oakland. Mentioned the port, ships, cargo handling equipment. Another question I saw referenced industrial sources in the area. So all of these things contribute to air pollution burdens, but we are really focused in the study just on traffic activity and the air quality impacts of those changes in traffic activity. So we are isolating that and looking at just at that impact. We're not bringing in any of these other sources in the study area that do contribute to air pollution, but we're holding as more or less unaffected by the truck ban.
Thank you. And Hugh, how are we understanding how truck traffic may move along the corridor? For example, which exits are unsafe for trucks and where the trucks are going to and from?
Yeah, I think I can speak to a piece of this, and there may be other pieces folks want to jump in on, and might take this to be essentially a question about like how the methodology, like how are we doing this work? And really there are a handful of components that go onto that. We do have information on truck counts as well as vehicle counts that happen on the freeways on today. We also use something that Alameda County Transportation Commission has, which is called the travel demand model, which allows us to look at in various conditions, where do you expect traffic to go? And, you know, we can sort of look at sort of evaluating taking the truck ban in and out of a network to see how that impacts the travel on that network, and not just for trucks, but for all vehicles in that. So that's kind of a key way that we get at how truck traffic is expected to change and move around, and that then gets fed into all the other work that we do. And then we also have data on kind of origin and destination travel patterns for trucks that come from a variety of sources, and those look at things like, you know, how much is coming out of the port, and a variety of ways to get at that. What are sort of the industrial areas and how much truck traffic is generated by those? So we have basically several different data sources that allow us to kind of calibrate and sort of zero in on where we expect there to be different kinds of truck movements and how they would be impacted by the truck ban.
Thank you. And we are, just to do a quick time check, it's 7:48 and we have really gone through a lot of your questions and provided detailed answers. We're gonna do a few more, and I think have to respond to other questions via the updated FAQ on the project website. Thank you for these excellent questions and for being so attentive and thoughtful in considering the study. So this is a question It's a little bit different. Please consider that we bought our homes knowing that we live by a scenic highway and not a freeway with big trucks. We were promised in the past that trucks would not be allowed on Highway 580. It was made a permanent vehicle code. How can it be considered permanent if it is changed? Are you considering the promises and commitments made to our neighborhoods in the past? And that is a Cameron John question.
Yeah, we certainly understand that thoughtful question. And again, that the origins of this study were in response to the community asking the question about the 580 truck ban and looking at it from different perspectives. And so we crafted our study scope based on the four kind of components of looking at traffic, noise, air, as well as the equity side of the house, and then of course the engagement with the community. So those concerns are definitely we hear you, and with respect to the idea that of the scenic highway designation, that will play I think a role in how we determine whether or not to make a recommendation based on the information that we obtain on whether or not that the removal or not is worthwhile in terms of all these various components of the study. So the scenic highway designation is something that does impact, I think, or is relating to land use along the 580 corridor, and we will certainly take that into account as we move forward.
Thank you. We're trying to address questions that really haven't been asked yet. Let's see, how emergency response vehicles from Kaiser and San Leandro Hospital blocked by trucks in San Leandro how many emergency response vehicles from Kaiser San Leandro Hospital are blocked by trucks in San Leandro on a daily basis? And how has the Kaiser Hospital ingress and egress been affected by the truck ban or shifted to I-880? And Hugh, that is a question for you.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I think this is a complicated question, and I don't think that we probably have great information about the very specific part of this question, just to be clear, in terms of knowing what's the relative impact of trucks on emergency vehicle access. Emergency vehicles can use all roads. Obviously, people are required to move out of the way. They tend to use local roads and streets for a variety of reasons, but you do see them elsewhere. And then it's certainly something I think that we want to acknowledge. We wanted to get it in here to acknowledge that's an interesting question. It's certainly something that we want to look at and dig into a little bit more and think about how maybe the methodology we're using and information we have might be something to look into more. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And then I have a question that I think for Kelsey that I think is kind of a good transition to our final slide. So John, that's a cue to you to get ready to pull the PowerPoint slides back up, please. So is there a mailing list that we can be added to know when the next presentations at City Council meetings and additional discussions will be held? Thank you.
Yes, so once we fire back up the PowerPoint, there is a link and a QR code that enables you to put your email address and your name and your zip code if you want to provide that information, where you can receive study updates. We're aiming to send out more frequent study updates now that we're fully kicked off and kind of chugging away with the study.
Thank you. And now, again, that's a great transition back to our final slides and our conclusion, kind of wrap up. So I think it's yeah, thank you. So the meeting recording will be posted to the dedicated project webpage, the engagement portal, within the next 2 weeks, I'd say before Thanksgiving, more or less. Feedback will be summarized and used for further analysis, and engagement will take place throughout the study, including community conversations, future public workshops, and in-person engagement. Stay engaged. More of the same information as a reminder, both links and QR codes to the engagement portal, as well as to a link to help sign you up to stay informed. And a reminder that it's the truck access study, but we also call it TAS. So if you see emails accordingly, you'll know what it is. And next slide, Cameron, please.
Once again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight and for sharing your time and questions and perspectives. This is just the start of a longer conversation, and your input is going to be a key part of how we move forward. We know that the transportation decisions have real impacts on people's daily lives, and we're committed to making sure this study reflects the needs and voices of the communities in the study area. We'll be continuing to gather feedback, share updates, and stay connected throughout the study process. If you didn't get a chance to ask a question or share a comment tonight, please don't worry. There will be more opportunities, and we encourage you to visit the study website as well as reaching out to the project team. So on behalf of Caltrans District 4, thank you again for being part of this important process, and we look forward to working with you in the months ahead. Have a great evening, everyone.